All right.
All
This
right.
is July 9th, 2025. Brennan Ames interviewing Billy Sherwood. Billy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Hey, good. First off, I wanted to talk about the Fragile tour that you guys are doing, the upcoming show. It's about
Cool.
30 dates over 46 days. How much can you tell us about the new tour?
Well, it's going to be an amazing show. Presenting the Fragile album in its entirety is going to be amazing. And the other side of the set is really interesting as well. I don't want to give anything away because it's spoilers and all that, right? But there's some very cool surprises in there and stuff that I'm excited to play and just a very interesting approach to putting the back half of the set together. I think people are going to dig it.
How much involvement do all the members have into putting a set list together?
I mean, we all have our sort of list. Steve asks us what we're thinking about, and then he kind of masterminds it into position. Excuse me. And we all tend to, agree on so many things. So it's very rare that any of us are unhappy with the selections. We always end up loving what we're doing. So, but we all, put our 2 cents in as far as the set list goes. And it might take a while in some cases. There's a
Mhm.
song called Silent Wings of Freedom that we've played now in a couple
Yeah.
tours, or maybe one. I don't remember. There's so many tours that's gone on. But I was playing those bass parts at sound check for years before and saying to the band, "What do you think about? Remember this one? This is kind of cool, right?" And eventually, I guess I, wore them down, so we added it into the set. So it's funny how things come about, but yeah, there's some cool surprises for sure.
Close to playing the original Fragile album, are you guys? Like, do you add anything, or do you like try to keep it as close to the original
Well,
as
I
possible?
mean, you're kind of bound by the music in a sense, if you think of it like an orchestral piece of music,
Hmm.
You can't come out and play da 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 dum without playing da 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 dum, right?
Yeah.
So there's certain sort of laws that you have to apply there and stay within those lines to keep the music working right. But there are some areas where you can express yourself in other ways and sort of, do your thing. But for the most part, the parts that are to be played are amazing. And, I have nothing but respect for those bass parts, obviously. So I try to really paint within the lines on the stuff where it's really like I know that the fans know those bass lines like I do, and they're
Yeah.
gonna want to hear them, So that's kind of how I go about it, and everybody kind of does. I mean, it's never the same show twice, but there's parts of it that are the same because that's how they're orchestrated to be.
Dean is going on tour with you guys basically with his art exhibit.
Yeah.
Whose idea was it to add Roger Dean to some of the tours?
Well, I mean, he's been such a huge part of this whole thing, right? Going so far
Yes.
back. And so I found it as, I mean, I've told Roger on several occasions, it's like he's the extra guy in the band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's always fun to have him out there, and I've got a great relationship with him. He's a very nice gentleman, and he's got a great sense of humor. So there's a lot of laughing that goes on out there. But his art being seen by those fans, I think, means a lot to the fans because they get a sense of come touching those moments back from the past that remind them, and there's the guy who created all this art, and I'm an art lover, so I know as a Yes fan I would have been loving it to see him at a Yes show. So I'm quite happy to have him with us anytime we can do it.
What do you think makes a Yes album? Now, obviously, there's no one man who has ties to Yes after Chris Squire died, and there's
Yeah.
no founding members, so the complete lineup has changed. What do you think holds Yes together and makes it what it is today?
Well, I think it's a sort of je ne sais quoi, as they say, you know. It's hard to put your finger on it, but you know when you feel it and when you see it and you hear it. And that's kind of, it's like there's a spirit involved with it almost. But I think the music being played at its highest level is the key to it. And there's so much history within the band. While as you said, there's no original members, you know, in part because I was two when they formed the band. Maybe I'd have been
Yeah.
there earlier, but I couldn't make it just then. Uh, but it has evolved and it's had a bit of a revolving door at the front that I've gone through, well, and others have, some more than others. But there's always this passion and desire amongst the band to do the best that we can, for with Yes and for the fans who are following. So we just try to bring our A game basically to it and make it happen. But it when it does gel, you feel that vibe, you feel that thing, and that's what I'm talking about. It's you can't put your finger on it, but you know when you see it, when you feel it, and I feel it whenever we play, and I'm a diehard fan, and
Yeah.
I've played with several versions of this band at this point, and if it felt weird to me, I wouldn't want to go out there every night, So that would have to be my answer. It's hard to put your finger on it, but you know it when you feel it, you know.
Now has stayed pretty constant over the past 10 years. Like
Yeah, well, it's
no one's left since Oliver Wakeman and Benoit David. What do you think has contributed to the rather like
well,
constant lineup?
I mean, I think, and I've been in Yes when chemistry is a factor, and we all know as Yes fans the history of this band, chemistry shifts along the way, and sometimes good chemistry goes bad, as we've seen, but for whatever reason, this chemistry is really, really working, and we all enjoy each other's company, so we're not at each other, as can be in bands, and we just really want to get out there and play the music because we all love it and feel that it deserves to be represented. So I don't know. I think all those things combined, but I think at the center of it is the chemistry, and it's the longest running Yes lineup that's been. So that
Yes.
says something. And as I said, I've got a history with the band. I was standing at the airport when the Talk Tour was done, and came off the plane and was waiting for my ride, and everybody went their separate ways, and that was it for the 90125 lineup. That
Yeah.
was done. So I've seen these transitions and things come and go, but chemistry is key, and being friendly with your bandmates and having a good time. Sounds kind of corny, but it is the recipe for survival if you want to really continue with something with your friends.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to war over everything, it's not going to last very long.
Being a Yes fan, and I know people don't have like one favorite, but what do you think are your favorite Yes albums?
Hmm. Well, my favorite has always been Tales from or
Mm,
of Topographic Oceans. And as much as I love it, I never know if it's of or from. I keep getting that wrong. But that's my favorite records,
yeah.
because it was so experimental. And you had four songs and you had the double album and two records. And, you're too young. You weren't there when we were like opening albums and putting them on a thing and.
Yeah.
So it was a whole visceral experience too. I mean, and I was young then. I was probably 10 or 11 when I was getting into that stuff. And it really left an impression of like, wow, this is like, I've never heard anything like this. And so that impression has lasted. And it's just always been my favorite. And I've played several sides of it and some of the ancient as well
Yeah.
many times now. And it's just a trip to do because it just takes me so far back. And then it pulls when I come snap out of that sort of dream state and I realize, oh, I got to play this. And then I start thinking, how the hell did I end up here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then that just keeps looping around all night while I was playing it. It was quite an experience.
Would you say the Tails stuff is difficult to play? Because now,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes you guys do like all four of them in a medley, and on previous tours, you've done the
Yeah.
first side and the last side.
Yeah, it's definitely a exercise in your memory for openers. But then you kind of get past a point for me anywhere where it becomes muscle memory more than like thinking memory, and what chords are we going to? That becomes second nature because your hands are in the place where it's been all night and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, but yeah, there's some of it's pretty damn tricky, not gonna lie. And but I think on a scale of like one to trickiest, Gates of Delirium, I think, was far more a challenge every night.
Uh,
But man, I loved playing it. And you know, when I was a kid, when I was like 16, 17, in my first band, we had this house in Sherman Oaks, and my bedroom was on the top floor, and I had these glass walls that would look out over the valley at night, the lights sprinkling, going off and sparkling. Anyway, and I would put on Gates of Delirium, put my headphones on, turn all the lights off, and just play that record,
yeah,
staring out at the city. And so I have this memory of all that. And I mean, that became like a ritual to do every night, pardon the pun. But so I spent so much time with it when I was young that when we played it, I had a pretty good grip on it just from again the muscle memory of like playing that so many times. But it's a whole different animal on stage with a band going for it, you know. And but it was so much fun to play. But I would have to classify that as I think the most has the most difficult bass work in it, you know.
completely abandoned the Relayer tour, or do you have
Sorry?
plans to do? Have you guys completely abandoned the Relayer tour, or are you guys still gonna do
I
that?
think at the end of the day, it got so caught up with being postponed through COVID and all that stuff and canceled that it just kind of had bad mojo to try to keep resurrecting that right out of the gate. So, which is why we kind of decided to go another direction. But that said, we all want to play it. So who knows, you know? I mean, we were ready to go. And, you know, before COVID broke out, I was at home and had Sound Chaser down pat and, you know, was like ready to go, man. And then the manager called. He's like, there's this thing called COVID coming and we have to cancel a tour. And then the rest is history, obviously. But
Yeah.
you know, we all were in our corners learning it and ready to go for it. We'd already played Gates of Delirium a few times
Yes.
and we'd all played soon. So it was really Sound Chaser was really the like, got to get this together. So we were all at that same point. So it's, you know, it's something, who knows, maybe we can bring it back at some point. It would be fun to do.
Yeah.
But the most difficult, for sure.
Most difficult. Okay.
I think.
How did you first get involved in Yes, leading
Hmm.
into you're still in Yes today?
Well, I mean, the short version is I had a band called World Trade that was signed by the lead singer of Gentle Giant. I don't know if you know that
Mhm.
band, Gentle
Yeah.
Giant, who was also a hero of mine. Love Gentle Giant. And he was the record executive at a label called Polydor, which had signed my band World Trade. He played Chris Squire the demos of my record, World Trade, that we were making at the time. And Chris really liked it. And Yes was on Atco Records without a lead singer because the 90125 lineup without a lead singer because they were doing a record on Arista called ABWH and they were touring. So little to my knowing, because I was naive and young back then, you know, when I was introduced to Chris by Derek Schulman, because Derek left Polydor and became Atco, right? So the politics shifted over there. Derek said, you know, your singer is over at Polydor, and you should just get him to be the lead singer. And so Chris and I have a dinner and become fast friends and end up writing a bunch of songs together. But in that time, I didn't realize they were trying to actually have me be the lead singer, and I kind of said, absolutely not. I'm happy to be involved with the production and writing, and we're having a great time, and I really like you, and let's remain friends. But like, I don't want to be the lead singer of Yes right now. You know, that was a time when there were no such things as tribute bands, right? And they were
Yeah.
all in their prime. I mean, everyone's still in their prime, right? But I'm just talking like prime, prime. And I just knew that they were going to reunite. I could see the lawyers flying lazy circles over these guys and thinking, God, if we put them all together, it'd be like the super yes, you know, one of those kind. And that's exactly what happened. So for whatever reason, thank the stars, you know, I had the wisdom back then to get out of the way of that moving train because I don't know that I'd have the career we're sitting here talking about if I was the guy who failed at being the lead singer, yes, because he got demolished by the whole thing, you know, it wouldn't have worked. I just have a sense that that was the right thing to do. And so now they've become union and they do their thing. And I have a song on the Union album as a result of all that time and effort. And there's some stuff on the box set as well called Yes Years. And then that's kind of that. really thought that was my brush with Yes. It was awesome. And I go back to my life and do production and whatnot. I was working on records myself. And then I got a call from Trevor Rabin. Do you want to come out and tour with us for the Talk Tour as a multi-instrumentalist guy? And I said, sure. So I went out and toured with the 905 lineup. And as I told you, when I got off the plane, they broke up. And so I thought again, well, there was another brush with Yes that was awesome, but I guess that's that. And then they put the classic lineup back together
Yeah.
and asked me to mix a live record of theirs because I was an audio mixer as well, engineer guy. And I did, and they had a nice time at my studio doing it. So they asked me to produce and mix the next album, which I did, which was Keys 2. At that point, when I was mixing Keys 2, Rick Wakeman quit at the very end of the process, and they were kind of breaking up again. And Chris and I took the reins and kind of started writing material, and that became Open Your Eyes. And that's that point that they said, well, you've been around this long enough, and you've written a lot of this, so why don't you join the band? So I become a member. And then I stay through that and the latter. And about 2000, I could sort of see the planets aligning that they wanted to get back to that classic thing. And I'd kind of, it was kind of a tense period at that point. So I left and went into production, back into production world, making records and stuff. And they did reform the classic lineup as predicted. So that was that again. I thought, well, there's the end of that, you know? And then fast forward to Anderson's left and they've got Benoit
Mm.
and they're making a live DVD and you mix the live DVD. So I mix a live DVD, I mix the next one and the next one and the next one, and now I'm kind of back in the loop on a production level. Um, Kind of always thinking, well, this might be the last time I'm ever working with these guys, you know? So enjoy it, which I did. And then in 2015, Chris calls me and tells me that they have a tour with him or with Yes and Toto, but he can't do it because he's got some stuff to do with medical stuff and he can't do it. And I said, well, then you'll have to postpone the tour. So he it says, well, everyone's depending on, this thing going out and the fans. I don't want to disappoint them and I don't want to disappoint the crew. They need to, make a living and all this kind of thing, which was very noble. But I said, Chris, if you got to deal with something, deal with it. So he says, yeah, I'll call you tomorrow. So he calls me the next day and tells me the same thing again. And I say to him again, look, you're Chris Squire. They'll wait. Tell your band, they're going to have to wait, right?
Yeah.
Postpone. And he says, yeah, I guess so. Okay, well, I'll call you tomorrow. And then he calls again the next day and he starts going into it. And I tell him, look, man, you keep telling me the same thing. Just call the band and tell them you can't do it. And he says to me, Billy, you're just not getting it. And I said, getting what, Chris? And he says, I want you to step in for me while I deal with what I'm dealing with. And I was kind of like in shock, stunned, because I knew, at some point, yes, would circle back around, but I didn't realize it was going to be like Chris and then whatever's going on here, it must be serious. I'm thinking something's going on. So, of course, I said yes. And I hung up the phone. And his wife called me and said, he didn't tell you what's really going on, though, did he? And I said, well, and he said he's dealing with some medical stuff. And she goes, no, man, he's got leukemia, rare form, and he's got about 6 weeks to live. And sure enough, it was 6 weeks, and he was gone. And all of a sudden, I'm the bass player of Yes. I mean, and there were a lot of conversations between Chris and I about him wanting me to do it, and to keep the band going forward and just keep it going and promise me and all this kind of stuff. And I, of course, said yes to everything because he was my friend and he knew I had a passion for the band as much as anyone who's been in Yes has passion for Yes, you know. Even when you're not in Yes, you have a passion for Yes. That's kind of the way it goes. But so I said yes, and I took the gig, and then just before we left, I think, I got the email that just said Chris Squire, and I opened it and I knew what it was going to be, and that was that. And then Destiny's taken me to a whole other place here, you know? So that's kind of how I've gone from the beginning to where we're sitting here now, except it's
Yeah.
10 years since that last event, which
Yeah.
none of us expected Chris to die. We always thought he was going to be the last man standing, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Richards and the Rolling Stones, you know? I mean, he's going to be the last guy. So it was a real shocker, heartbreaking, and a very difficult time. But you know, he wanted it to go on. The Yes fans obviously wanted it to go on. Here we sit 10 years later, and they're with their support and love and desire to keep hearing this stuff, which we want to keep delivering. here we sit.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's about 35 years I just wrapped up in a bow for you.
Yeah. What do you think has been the most memorable thing uh, as your time in Yes?
Sorry, as what?
What do you think has been the most memorable thing from your time with Yes?
Ah. Well, I mean, there's been so many memorable things, and I could think of so many because there were so many, and it was very much every time anything unique and amazing happened, I'd think, how the hell did I get here? It was one of those. And but I guess if I had to sort of think about the one event that was sort of the most special and funny, because Chris and I, we would laugh a lot and we joked around a lot on stage, off stage. We just had that thing. We just, joke. So his birthday, we were in Europe, and his birthday is March 4th. Mine's March 14th. So we're both Pisces, which was funny because when we first met and he asked me, "What are you?" I said, "I'm Pisces." Why? And he said, well, that's later. Sorry, not when we met, but later, after we'd written a few things, he said, "You're Pisces." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That's why our music is so watery." And I said, "I don't even know what that means, but cool. That sounds good." So anyway, it's his birthday on the 4th. And when we play in a gig over there, I think it was the Ladder tour. I don't remember. Maybe Open Your Eyes, the Ladder, one of those. And it's his birthday on the 4th. So as we're playing, John Anderson comes out to the audience and says, "It's Chris's birthday tonight. Let's sing him happy birthday." And the whole audience sings Chris happy birthday, and it's a beautiful thing. And because Chris and I shared the same tech and we were in the same corner, when it was done, he walks over to me and I'm like, "Happy birthday, bro." He's like, "Yeah, thanks, man. That was nice." And I'm like, cool, cool. So now fast forward to my birthday, and it's March 14th, and we're in Milan. I'll never forget where we were because it was so funny. And John Anderson says, Billy Sherwood's birthday tonight. Let's get him, everybody to sing us. So sings me happy birthday. And just like I did with Chris, I turn around, I kind of look at him and smile. And we're back in the corner. He's like, "Happy birthday, man." So I was like, "Oh, thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it." Right. So now we're playing more music and playing more music. And there's a song in between. John's talking to the audience. He goes, "Oh, did I mention it's Billy Sherwood's birthday? Let's sing him happy birthday." And he starts it up again, right? And now I'm like, "Okay, what's going on here?" But I'm standing there because I'm a professional. I gotta stand there. I take it and say thank you, and I nod my head and I turn around and I look, and Chris has got this look on his face, like a kid who didn't get the ice cream that the other kids got. You know what I mean? And I walked over to him and he's like, "Oh, it's 2 times, huh?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I gave him $100 to do it? I mean, he just wanted to do it, I guess. So yeah, I guess twice, right?" Yeah, okay. Well, happy birthday again. He says, "Okay, cool. Play more music." A third time, John, in the middle of a song, "Did I mention it's Billy Sherwood's birthday?" And off they go again. And at this point, I turn and look at Chris, and he is not happy about this at all. And I walked over and I said, "I don't know what this is that's going on, but you can't be pissed at me, man. I'm just standing here playing guitar. I don't care if anyone sings me happy birthday or not. So whatever you're dealing with has nothing to do with me. I'm out." That was a very memorable night. And we went out and had drinks afterwards. So please, I just don't get it, man. You get three and I get one. I'm like, "Chris, how old are you? Does any of this matter?" Oh my God, he was so funny, bless him. So much fun. Yeah.
Are you works on a new album now? And when can we expect any new recordings?
Yeah, we're working on a new record now, and I mean, on a percentage scale of 1 to done being 100, I'd say we're at about 85%. I think it's safe to say. Um, we're all doing stuff, but Steve is producing it, at his pace over there, which is quite lively. I mean, if you consider, how the gaps in Yes making records, we've
Yes.
got 2 records behind us in not too long of a time. So
Yeah.
we're moving at a lightning pace in terms of the Yes realm. So I think you'll see it next year for sure. I don't know when, but as the holidays come up and I'm kind of living here now in London, so I'm around for whatever little overdubs are needed and everybody else is. When the drums are done, I tracked them in LA with Jay when I was there last, and Jay just did an amazing job. So yeah, it sounded really good. Sounded good. Cool songs too.
For your time.
Sorry?
Thank you for your time. Gonna
Oh
end
yeah,
it here.
thanks, man. Yeah, thanks. It was fun. So
Thank you.
we'll do it again at any point. All right, I'm around. All right, bro. And I don't know where, what show you're gonna come to, but don't buy tickets. Just let me get you sorted. But just text me, you have
Yeah,
my email now, so just make sure I know that I don't forget because I do forget this shit. But just remind me a few days before the show. Hit me on the app and then also in an email, and I'll get you and whoever you want to bring sorted. All right. Cool. All right, brother. Good luck. See you, man.
you too.